All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking the really intense financial scrutiny surrounding Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. And this is not your typical political story. It's a situation that has reportedly drawn in investigators from two completely different and rival presidential administrations. That alone makes this a pretty rare and fascinating political mystery. So the whole thing really blew up when former President Donald Trump made this incredibly direct accusation. He threw out this $30 million number and pretty clearly suggested something wasn't right. That one statement really set the stage for everything that was about to unfold. But this is where the story gets a really interesting twist. The pressure wasn't just coming from one side. According to reports, it wasn't only the Trump administration that was looking into this. The Biden Justice Department apparently got interested too. And in the world of Washington, D.C., that kind of focus from both sides of the aisle on a single official, that almost never happens. And that brings us to the real head-scratcher here, what looks like a bipartisan probe. I mean, why would two competing administrations, Trump's and then Biden's, both find something worth investigating in the finances of the same Congresswoman? So that's the big question we're digging into. What was it exactly in those financial records that caught the eye of investigators from both parties? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at the numbers. Okay, let's get into the specifics. What this whole controversy really boils down to is a very, very rapid and pretty huge increase in the reported wealth connected to Representative Omar and her husband. The number that got all the headlines, of course, was that $30 million that President Trump mentioned. Now, it's not totally clear how he came up with that exact figure, but it for sure got everyone's attention. So while people can argue about that $30 million number, what's not really up for debate is what's in the official federal disclosure forms. These documents show a lot of the wealth is tied up in businesses owned by Omar's husband, and their value seems to have just skyrocketed in a really short amount of time. And wow, just look at this table. It really paints a picture. A winery that was valued at up to $15,000 in 2023 was suddenly valued at up to $5 million just a year later. And even more wild, an investment firm went from being worth, and I quote, mere dollars to as much as $25 million in that same time frame. This is the kind of spike that reportedly got investigators interested. So, with numbers like that floating around, who exactly started digging into it? Well, reports say this wasn't just some small, isolated thing. It actually involved a few different government bodies. From what we understand, we're talking about 3 different groups. The investigation reportedly kicked off under the Trump administration, then was picked up by the Biden Justice Department, and now it's also being looked at by a really powerful committee in Congress. And that third group, the House Oversight Committee, they're a major player. They are the main investigative body in the House, so when they get involved, it's a big deal. The committee has also said that their probe is actually part of a much bigger investigation they're doing into welfare fraud back in Omar's home state of Minnesota. Okay, so you have all of this scrutiny, all these questions. How has Congresswoman Omar and her team responded to all of this? Well, according to reporters on Capitol Hill, when journalists have tried to ask her about the investigation into her and her husband's finances, she's apparently avoided giving them a direct answer. But she did put out a statement that hit back directly at President Trump's comments. As you can see from her quote here, she's framing this whole thing as a political attack. She's accusing him of panicking and just using lies and conspiracy theories to distract from his own problems. So where does all this leave us right now? Well, the truth is, this is very much an ongoing story. We've got allegations and we've got investigations, but we definitely don't have any final answers just yet. Okay, so let's just boil this all down. On one hand, you have a documented, absolutely massive jump in wealth that has apparently drawn interest from multiple government bodies across political lines. And on the other hand, you have a strong denial from the Congresswoman, who says this is all just a politically motivated attack. And that leaves us right here with the central question of this whole thing. Is all this scrutiny around Ilhan Omar's finances a case of legitimate government oversight looking into some really unusual financial activity, or is it a politically motivated campaign to target a high-profile and controversial politician? For now, we'll have to wait and see how the story unfolds.